Hello, and thanks for tuning in. You are listening to a special deep dive episode on Building Fortunes Radio and the Humongous Radio Network. In this deep dive review, we will focus on the education, experience, and opinions of reputable people and sources on Building Fortunes Radio. Peter Mingils hosts the original shows with distinguished special guests, or research, news, and developments. These podcasts are so good, they are published everywhere. From highly specialized sites such as MLM.news and directselling.news to the Building Fortunes Radio and Humongous Radio networks, and even on Amazon's Audible, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Humongous.com is a corporate sponsor, and Humongous promotes each radio show, and Deep Dive is educational, motivational, and inspirational for the Building Fortunes Radio and Humongous Radio listening audience. Check out the music link and the deep dive review links as they add a unique feature worth your time and enjoyment. If you have questions or want to host a show on the Humongous Network, call or text Peter Mingils on 386-864-1928. Humongous. It's really big. Now on to our deep dive review. Let's get started.
Every cell in your body, your core identity, the entire trajectory of your future, it can all be permanently rewired in exactly 3 seconds.
Yeah, just 3 seconds. It's wild to think about.
Right. And today, we're taking a deep dive into the work of an 82-year-old behavioral strategist who basically mapped out the exact neuroscience of this 3-second window.
And then, in this incredibly devastating twist of fate, she actually had to prove her own theories in real time.
Yeah, following a tragedy in the icy waters of a Wyoming river. So welcome to our deep dive. I mean, this one is heavy, but it is so important.
It really is a profound paradox. We're looking at a lifetime of rigorous psychological research, just totally colliding with a single, irreversible micro moment.
Exactly. And just to lay out what we're looking at today, we've got a stack of sources here. There's a July 21st, 2026 interview transcript from Building Fortunes Radio.
Right, hosted by Peter Mingils.
Yep. And we've also got a breaking news article from the Cowboy State Daily, plus a really touching tribute post from Peter's News.
So the focus here, the real mission of this deep dive, is Edie-raether and her new book, The 3-Second NeuroShift. You can find it at Edie-raether.com, by the way.
And she had literally just finished this book, right? Like just mapped out this entire framework for how these fleeting decisions dictate our destiny.
Yeah, exactly. The ink was barely dry, and then her own life was just permanently altered by a 3-second decision her son made on July 4th, 2026.
It's just heartbreaking. But to really grasp the gravity of this collision between her theory and her reality, I think you first have to understand the sheer force of nature that Edie is.
Oh, absolutely. She's a powerhouse.
Like, we're talking about someone in her 83rd year who has spent 6 decades studying the human brain, the physical and psychological limits of it.
And it all started with her working as an occupational therapist, right? With quadriplegic children.
Yeah. And working with kids facing permanent physical paralysis, I mean, that forces a practitioner to confront the absolute boundaries of human adaptation.
Right, because you can't just fix the physical issue. It requires shifting the focus entirely to mental resilience.
Exactly. So from that intense foundation, she moves into clinical counseling, she gets her master's degree, and she even ran a private practice alongside psychiatrists back in the 1970s.
And then she spends the next 60 years basically practicing clinical hypnosis, doing brain training, speaking on 5 continents, and, authoring 8 books.
It's quite a resume. Her work spans everything from the spiritual, like she wrote a book called Why Cats Don't Bark, which became this huge bestseller in China.
Wait, really? In China?
Yeah, a major bestseller there. And she even wrote Sex for the Soul. Plus, she maps out deep corporate influence in a book called Forget Selling.
She even had her own ABC, TV, and radio talk show in the 80s. I mean, all of this diverse clinical, practical experience, it all basically culminates in the 3-second NeuroShift.
Right. And what really fascinates me about this new book is how aggressively she pushes back on, like, the pop psychology trends we've seen for the last 20 years.
Oh, yeah. She takes direct aim at the whole manifestation movement. Books like The Secret.
Yes. Because, I mean, she points out a pretty critical flaw there, doesn't she?
She does. Like, The Secret popularized this idea of visualization, but without the underlying neuroscience, manifestation is just a half measure.
You can't just sit there, visualize a new reality, and wait for the universe to drop it in your lap.
Right. your brain's neural pathways, they don't just rewire themselves just because you made a pretty vision board.
Exactly. So let's actually break down the mechanism of what she's talking about, because her critique of standard goal setting is honestly brilliant.
It is. She argues that setting a goal without fundamentally shifting your underlying identity, that's why people, lose 50 pounds and then gain it all back a year later.
It's like painting a crumbling house, right? Like the fresh paint looks amazing for a month.
But eventually the structural reality just takes over and the walls cave in.
Right. If the foundation, which is your identity, doesn't change, the new paint job won't last. So how does she explain the brain's role in this?
Well, the foundational structure is your self-image. Your brain is this highly efficient machine, which means it really relies on automatic neural pathways, like habits, just to save energy.
So it doesn't want to work hard if it doesn't have to.
Exactly. If your core identity is still wired to this previous version of yourself, your brain will subconsciously sabotage your new goals just to align with that old identity.
And this is where the actual 3-second NeuroShift comes into play, isn't it?
Yes. And it's not just a metaphor. There's a real biological mechanism happening here.
Like when a trigger happens, say you get the urge to skip a workout or, snap at your partner, your brain instantly tries to fire down that old automatic pathway.
Right. And Edie's 3-second rule is about wedging this conscious pause right between the trigger and the reaction.
So in those 3 seconds, you're forcing your prefrontal cortex, which is, the logical decision-making center of your brain, you're forcing it back online.
You basically interrupt the automatic circuit. It takes about 3 seconds of conscious intervention to stop your amygdala from hijacking your response.
And that allows you to choose an action that actually aligns with the new identity you're trying to build.
Which brings us to this concept she introduces that sounds almost kind of contradictory at first. She calls herself the dopamine diva.
The dopamine diva. I love that. But it is weird, right? Because we always hear dopamine talked about as this villain.
Right, like it's the thing our phones exploit to ruin our attention spans.
Yeah, exactly. But she completely reframes it. She calls dopamine our internal engine and basically the only real addiction.
She draws this really hard line between internal drive and external motivation.
Because culturally, we obsess over external motivation, don't we?
Oh, totally. A coach screaming from the sidelines, some intense hype video, a manager pushing a sales team. Edie views all of that as manipulation.
Because you're trying to force someone to execute a behavior that their internal identity is actively rejecting.
Right. It's like trying to drive a car on the highway with the parking brake fully engaged.
You can press the gas pedal all you want. You can burn up the engine, but you are literally fighting your own mechanics.
And that friction eventually destroys the system. But dopamine is biologically the molecule of anticipation and reward.
So when you do the hard work of shifting your identity during those 3-second windows, you create a natural, intrinsic dopamine loop.
Exactly. You don't need the external hype anymore. The drive becomes entirely internal.
As she puts it, when you align the right person in the right seat, you don't have to push them. Their own neurochemistry just propels them forward.
And this internal engineering is so vital to her that she is dedicating all the profits from this 320-page book to her nonprofit.
Which is the Wings for Wishes Academy, right?
Yes. And again, you can find the book at Edie-raether.com. The Academy's entire mission is to wire children for health, happiness, and resilience before they reach the age of 7.
Before age 7, why that specific cutoff?
The focus on that age is deeply rooted in brainwave states. Before the age of 7, children operate predominantly in this alpha brainwave state.
That's that dreamy, almost hypnotic state you find yourself in right before you fall asleep, right? The analytical filters are just down.
Yeah, exactly. It's a highly impressionable, totally uncritical state. Children in the alpha state are essentially just sponges.
Absorbing the behaviors, the fears, the beliefs of their environment right into their subconscious programming.
Right. And then around age 7, the brain transitions prominently into the beta state, which is our more rigid, analytical, waking consciousness.
So Edie's mission is basically preventative neuroscience. She wants to imprint resilient neural patterns during that open alpha window.
Exactly, so people don't have to spend decades in beta trying to undo all their childhood trauma.
It's brilliant. And she had literally just finished putting this entire framework out into the world. The ink was barely dry on the 3-second shift concept.
But then that theory was suddenly put to the ultimate, most devastating test on the weekend of July 4th, 2026.
Yeah. It forces this horrible transition from clinical neuroscience to a very raw, very real human tragedy.
We can piece together the timeline of what happened through the broadcasts on Building Fortunes Radio.
Right, because the host, Peter Mingils, was working closely with Edie to launch her own show on his network.
They spoke on Friday, July 3rd, just going over normal logistical planning for the shows.
And she mentioned casually that she might be traveling for the holiday weekend to visit her son, Tori, who is building a home down in North Carolina.
So when Saturday, Sunday, and Monday passed with zero communication from her, Peter just assumed what anyone would assume.
Like she was unplugged for the holiday, right? Just spending time with family.
Exactly. But the reality playing out across the country was entirely different.
When she finally called him on Tuesday, it was to tell him that her 55-year-old son, Edie-raether, had vanished into a river.
The sheer shock of it was so profound that Peter actually had to look up the local news reports on the internet while he was on the phone with her.
Just to process the magnitude of what she was even saying?
Yeah. Those reports came from the Cowboy State Daily, and they broke down this tragic sequence of events out in Wyoming.
So Tori was visiting Jackson, Wyoming, and an area his best friend later noted was one of Tori's absolute favorite places in the entire world.
Right. He was spending the evening of Saturday, July 4th, near a town called Alpine, with his wife Jean, his daughters, and their whole group.
They were at a spot on the Snake River, locally known as Jump Rock.
And this is where the physical reality of the 3-second shift becomes just almost unbearable to analyze.
They were wrapping up for the evening, getting ready to head out for dinner, and Tori said his final words to his wife.
He said, "One more jump and we'll go."
A completely routine decision at a spot where people recreate all the time.
But he made the jump without a life jacket, and after hitting the water, he just never resurfaced.
And, looking at this strictly on paper, it could be hard for someone unfamiliar with the region to understand.
He's 55, seemingly very capable, and it is the middle of July.
You would naturally assume someone could just swim to the bank. But the environmental mechanics of the Snake River are incredibly deceptive.
Yeah, the air temperature is warm, but that river is heavily fed by snowmelt from the mountains.
Edie actually mentioned people had been skiing in the nearby elevations just a month earlier.
So the water beneath the surface is effectively ice water.
And plunge diving into water at that temperature triggers this massive, instantaneous biological cascade known as cold water shock.
It's terrifying how fast it happens.
I actually looked into the mechanism of this. Your autonomic nervous system completely hijacks your body the second you hit that freezing temperature.
Right. You experience that involuntary gasp reflex, which often causes people to aspirate water immediately.
But beyond that, your blood vessels violently constrict in this emergency attempt to keep warm blood near your vital organs.
That sudden massive vasoconstriction creates a mechanical nightmare for the heart.
The pathways for blood flow suddenly narrow, but the shock also triggers adrenaline, which causes the heart rate to accelerate wildly.
It is trying to pump a massive volume of blood through instantly restricted pathways.
The pressure spikes violently. And authorities, along with Edie, suspect this biological system overload triggered a fatal heart attack the very moment he entered the water.
It basically paralyzes the body before you even have the conscious thought to try and swim.
In a matter of seconds, the swift current of the Snake River simply pulls you under.
The cascade of biological events is irreversible before the brain even registers the danger. It's so tragic.
The Cowboy State Daily outlined the immediate and massive response, though.
Yes, Star Valley Search and Rescue deployed teams with drones, search dogs, jet skis, and even a jet boat.
But they were fighting a losing battle against underwater hazards and rapidly fluctuating water levels.
It reached a point where the local sheriff had to make the grim decision to formally transition the operation.
From a search and rescue to a recovery mission, the reality of survival was zero.
But the loyalty Tori inspired in his life became very apparent during this whole effort.
Oh, absolutely. His lifelong friend of 35 years, Brad Johnson, immediately dropped everything and rushed out to Wyoming to join the search.
And the boyfriend of Tori's daughter, who happens to be a local rafting guide, was out there navigating those dangerous waters looking for him.
Ultimately, it took a full week before his body was recovered.
Which really brings us to the most complex part of this entire deep dive.
Yeah. We are observing a woman whose entire life's work is dedicated to brain training, resilience, and identity shifting.
Suddenly forced to process the ultimate, completely unfixable tragedy.
To understand her cognitive process here, I think you have to look at her track record of overcoming disaster.
Right. She uses this term bouncing forward, which is distinctly different from bouncing back.
Because in her 40s, after decades of building her career, she trusted a man who ultimately turned out to be a convicted felon.
And she lost everything. I mean, estimates put the financial devastation at around $4 to $5 million.
It wasn't just a hit to her portfolio. She was completely wiped out. She ended up homeless for 15 months.
Living on a piece of land at Lake Norman in North Carolina, without running water or even flushing toilets.
She had to string an extension cord to an outside power pole just to plug in her laptop so she could continue writing her books.
That is an extreme test of the dopamine loop she teaches.
Seriously. She maintained her internal drive when all her external circumstances collapsed.
And she eventually rebuilt that wealth, utilizing credit cards and really leaning on Tori and his friend Lou Mang.
Who had a flawless credit score, right, to help secure the necessary funding.
Yes. And she ultimately built a multi-million-dollar property with vacation rentals on that very same lake.
But she draws an absolute unyielding line between that kind of catastrophic financial loss and the loss of her son.
Because she can rebuild a bank account. She can rewire a poverty mindset.
But she states very clearly about Tori's death, she says. There is no bouncing back. There's no bouncing forward. It's over.
When you're dealing with the finality of death, the physical reality is just permanent. You cannot NeuroShift a person back into existence.
The framework has to adapt from changing reality to simply surviving it.
And this brings up a massive philosophical debate, doesn't it?
It really does. In our culture, the default comfort we always offer grieving people is that phrase, time heals all wounds.
It is the ultimate, inescapable platitude.
I always found it slightly dismissive, honestly. But Edie, speaking as a behavioral strategist, outright rejects it on a neurological level.
She deconstructs the very definition of the word healing.
Because if you sustain a physical injury, like a deep cut on your arm, your biological systems kick in, the tissue repairs itself.
And eventually, the skin looks and functions as it did before. The damage is essentially erased.
Healing, by definition, implies a return to the original state.
But with profound grief, that original state is gone forever. Time doesn't possess some magical passive property that repairs the loss.
Exactly the opposite. Time simply provides the expansive space required for neuroadaptation.
You're not healing, you're rewiring. Your brain is slowly building new coping mechanisms.
Establishing new neural pathways to function around the permanent void that has been left in your life.
The empty spot remains forever. You adapt through conscious daily choices, not through just passive healing.
That distinction is incredibly liberating for anyone going through trauma, I think.
It removes that societal pressure to just get back to normal. Normal is erased.
It shifts the focus entirely to adaptation. And what is so striking here is that we aren't just reading about her process in a book.
Right, we are watching her externalize this neuroadaptation in real time on a massive scale.
The vehicle for this real-time documentation is Peter Mingils and the Humongous Radio Network.
They move forward with the Edie-raether-radio-show on Building Fortunes Radio,
transforming it from just a platform to promote her book into a live chronicle of her journey through grief.
And the reach is vast. These discussions are being syndicated across Amazon Music, Audible, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio.
Plus, they are broadcasting video versions on YouTube and Facebook.
She is using this massive digital footprint to demonstrate her life's work while she's in the deepest valley of her life.
There is a moment in her broadcast with Peter that serves as the ultimate proof of concept for everything she teaches.
She is incredibly transparent. She admits that the grief is overwhelming. She cries multiple times a day.
Yeah, and she says a single stray thought can cause her to completely fall apart off camera.
But the moment the microphone is live, the moment the recording starts, an entirely different neural pathway fires.
She tells Peter, I rise to the occasion.
Her identity as a speaker, as a professional who delivers value and strength to an audience, is so deeply entrenched in her brain after 60 years.
It literally bypasses the amygdala's panic response.
It acts as an automatic neurological safety net. The identity shift she advocates for in the 3-second NeuroShift is so ingrained that it carries her through moments when sheer willpower would just fail.
It is stunning to witness. And through these broadcasts, she is actively ensuring that Tori's 55 years of life define his legacy rather than the 3 seconds that ended it.
The sources paint a very vivid picture of a man who naturally embodied the kind of internal alignment Edie teaches.
His lifelong friend Brad described him as lifeboat material.
He was the rare type of individual whose core character was unshakable, regardless of external circumstances.
Whether he was holding his last dollar or sitting on $1 million, his identity remained completely consistent.
Edie highlighted his analytical mind, too. He approached life strategically, almost like a chess match.
constantly evaluating how to position the people around him for success. She actually shared this anecdote about when Tori was first considering marrying his wife, Jean.
Right. He bluntly told his mother, "I think she'll be a good breeder."
Which, taken out of context, sounds incredibly clinical.
It really does. And Edie acknowledged that if Jean wasn't as stunningly beautiful as Julia Roberts, she might hesitate to share that story.
But she shared it to illustrate his mindset. Tori wasn't just captivated by superficial romance.
He was calculating the long-term reality of building a strong, resilient family.
He was looking at character, capability, and the future, always thinking 3 steps ahead.
He was a mentor who deliberately put the right people in the right seats on his bus.
To honor that widespread impact, 2 distinct memorials were organized in August of 2026.
One in Wisconsin to cover his roots, and one in North Carolina.
And in a final heartbreaking display of her professional identity superseding her grief, Edie made the decision to write and deliver his eulogy herself.
After a lifetime of speaking on stages across the world, she couldn't tolerate the idea of anyone else standing at the podium to summarize her son's life.
She had to deliver the final presentation.
It is the ultimate testament to the strength she forged over those 60 years.
For anyone listening who wants to support this ongoing journey and mission, purchasing the 3-second NeuroShift at Edie-raether.com does more than just provide you with her neuro framework.
Right, all profits go directly to the Wings for Wishes Academy,
funding that crucial work of wiring children for resilience in those vital early years. You are directly supporting a framework that prepares the next generation for the unpredictable tragedies of adulthood.
Which brings us full circle to the core attention of this deep dive.
We spend our lives mapping out 5-year plans, assuming we have the luxury of time to slowly shape our destiny.
But Edie's work and Tori's story strip away that illusion entirely.
The neuroscience proves that your life is not shaped in decades. It is shaped in micro moments. The most important moment of your life hasn't happened yet.
It is the very next decision you make.
So, if you knew that the trajectory of your entire life or the life of someone you love could be permanently rewritten in a single breath, what are you going to do with your next 3 seconds?
Wow, thanks for tuning in. That was a really great deep dive. You just finished listening in to a special deep dive episode on Building Fortunes Radio and the Humongous Radio Networks. We hope you enjoyed it, learned a lot, and will share this with others important to you. In this deep dive review, we focused on the education, experience, and opinions of reputable people and sources on Building Fortunes Radio. Peter Mingils hosts the original shows with distinguished special guests, news, and developments. These podcasts are so good they are published everywhere, from highly specialized sites such as MLM.news and directselling.news to the Building Fortunes Radio and Humongous Radio Networks, and also on Amazon Audible, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. We hope you share them with others so you can make a difference in their world. Our corporate sponsor is Humongous.com. Now you know why Humongous promotes that each radio show and deep dive is educational, motivational, and inspirational for the Building Fortunes radio listening audience. If you like these deep dives, make sure you check out the music link and the deep dive review links as they add a unique feature worth your time. If you have questions or want to host a show on the Humongous Network, call or text Peter Mingils on 3868-641928. Humongous. It's really big. Peter Mingils and I want to thank you for listening in to the deep dive. We wish you the success you deserve and are willing to work towards. Now, go make your world a better place.